A continuación, en Poder 97.1, tu hora informativa. Entrevistas e información para nuestra comunidad. Y ahora con ustedes, Ida Pérez.
Buenos días, mi gente de Rochester, y bienvenido a su hora informativa. Mi nombre es Ida Pérez y para mí es un verdadero placer poder estar con ustedes en esta mañana. Su hora informativa es un programa que les trae información importante que esperamos que los inspire a una mejor calidad de vida para usted y su familia. Cubrimos información sobre los campos de salud, educación, empleo, vivienda y muchos otros temas más que nos afectan como persona y como pueblo. Su hora informativa está aquí todos los sábados de 10 a 11 de la mañana y nos alegramos muchísimo de que estén con nosotros nuevamente en el día de hoy. Hoy tengo un invitado muy especial que le voy a pedir a él que se presente, que nos diga su nombre y de dónde es originalmente. I was just saying that I have a special guest with me today, and I'm going to ask him to introduce himself and tell us what brought you to Rochester and how long you've been in Rochester.
Awesome. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
This is John Harris, and I am actually a native of Rochester.
Okay.
I was born and have been raised here all of my life.
Okay.
I was born at the old Genesee Hospital.
Yes, so was I.
Oh, awesome.
And John, what brought your family here? Where's your family originally from?
Sure. So my father is originally from the South, Cordele,
Okay.
Georgia. Mm-hmm. My mother is originally from Syracuse, actually.
Okay. Oh.
So what brought us here is they met in college in Oswego State University.
Look at that.
And then they relocated to Rochester, New
Why
York.
Rochester?
I think because of the business at the time
Okay.
and the business world. My father actually worked at Kodak. So after
Okay.
graduating from Oswego, he actually was employed with Kodak.
Nice.
So I think that's what brought them here.
Yeah, I always like to ask that question because I love to hear people's history, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what actually brought them to Rochester. So many people complain about Rochester, but then other people just absolutely love Rochester, right?
That's me.
Yep, and then it usually is the same story, right? Either people come for work or they come following love, right? Or they come because they already had family here, whatever. So it's always cool to see how, we connect in those ways, right? And though we're very different in many different ways, those stories kind of connect us. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. So no thought of moving anywhere else, huh?
Well, we'll see what the future holds. My family and I, we've talked about possibly relocation way down the road, but we're looking, Carolinas, possibly Virginia, but nothing in the near future at all. We actually love Rochester.
Are you looking for a warmer place or?
I think looking for warmth, in retirement area. So, I have a ways to go though.
Okay.
Because we're the few. We actually love Rochester.
Yeah. Cool. And it's always so nice to know, cool people that are doing cool things here in Rochester. So, Mr. Harris, tell us a little bit about your role, because I know you work at Eugenio Maria de Hostos Charter School, but I know that you have an educational background. So tell us a little bit about that. Like, what was your humble beginnings?
So my humble beginnings, and I'll start, I guess, with the EMHCS because I am in my 18th year.
Oh, wow.
With the school.
Get out.
Yeah, so I actually came.
What, you grew up there? Like, you went there as a student? Like, what are you talking about?
You'd think I did. I actually started working in 2007 as an after-school group leader.
Yes.
After actually Ibero was running it back then.
Yes, Ida Veras. Yes,
absolutely. So I started as a group leader there, and that's where my educational path kind of took off from there. Prior to that, I was working in childcare setting.
Okay.
Yep. So I started as a group leader.
So you've been with children from a very beginning.
For a very, very long time, yes.
That's
I've always
really
had that
cool.
niche. I think it's because I'm the oldest.
Okay.
So I've been taking care of kids all of my life.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So in 2007, I started as a group leader or after-school tutor. And then the following year, I was asked, would I be interested in a paraprofessional job with the school? Had never thought about teaching, really just enjoyed kids. It was kind of my natural niche.
Yeah.
And I said, sure, I'm willing to take the challenge. I worked in a para position for a year and decided this is the path that I want to go
Wow.
in. So, years went on. I went back, got my undergrad in education. I was a teacher at the school for many, many years. Went back to an organizational leadership master's program, and I became an administrator at the school. And here we are today.
All of that at Eugenio Maria de Hostos Charter School.
All of that, yes, absolutely. I've been
wow.
there 18 years.
That is really cool. Yeah. I didn't know that story of
well,
you.
You learn something new every day, right?
Yes.
It's a testimony for me. It's one of the things that I'm most proud of. A lot of people don't stay in an organization that long, but I believe in our mission and our vision and the dream that we have and the founders, and I've been here for a long time.
And you've literally built your career around the school.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
That is, I think that's why you and I connect. From the minute I met you the very first time, I liked you. And I think that's why, because we had that early childhood love.
Absolutely. And the feeling is mutual.
Yes. Oh, my God. That is so cool. That is really, really, I didn't know that. That's really amazing, right? And that's, I think sometimes we don't toot our own horn, right? And I don't think that, they probably have more stories like that, right? With people that, maybe students that started and now are into the education field, and it all started at that school. So I think we need to talk to your CEO and say, hey, we got to make a little storybook here of all these great success stories that you guys have there.
Yeah, there's a few other staff members who started with me and are in the same boat. They've been there 18 years. Wow. And then we've actually had students who've graduated, gone on, and come back, have been teachers.
Yes.
We have students who've gone on and their kids now attend our school.
Yes.
So, Eugenio is strong. Eugenio is strong, and we've been here. We're not going anywhere.
Yeah, and, we have a lot of that in Ibero, too, right? We have a lot of stories like that in Ibero. But to have it in the school, specifically in the school, based on education and, having all these great people come back and do and pay it forward, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Like that's really cool. I didn't know that, and I love that story. I love that story. I'm so glad you shared it with me.
Absolutely.
So what do you do now there at the school? Like, what is your role now at the school?
Sure. Yeah. So my current role is the Chief Operations Officer. So what that means is that I'm responsible for all of our day-to-day operations of the school. I'm responsible for safety and security, our building services and facilities. I am a liaison between our nurses who we get from BOCES, transportation, student support services. There's a gambit of things.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
And you guys got 3 schools in 3 different locations. So how do you manage all of that?
So we're one school with 3 different campuses.
Right, 3 campuses.
Yep.
Right.
So our office is in the administrative office, but we kind of go back and forth between the 3 schools. And it is a bit of a challenge, and I know we'll probably talk about it a little bit a little later in the show. However, we're looking at decreasing that to 2 campuses.
Right.
Because it is difficult to go between the 3 different campuses.
Yeah.
We have our high school, and then we have our middle school and our elementary
and
school.
2 of them are very close, but the other one is further away.
Correct. Our elementary and our middle school are literally walking distance. Sometimes we walk between the campuses.
Right.
So we're looking at, eventually making this 2 campuses.
And we'll talk more about that towards the end, because I do want you to, because I know you're kind of leading that project, which is another layer of work.
Another hat that I wear.
I know.
Absolutely.
But we really wanted to talk today about school safety, because, we haven't had anything tragic here in Rochester, but we've heard about, things that have happened at schools where, a student may come with a gun and, all those different things. And I know that the schools in general, right, not just charter schools, but the city school districts and probably all the schools in our county, have had some kind of level of securities in their school. Tell us a little bit about that. Like, how do we get a school to get to that point where you always have to have security in the schools?
So it's unfortunate. I'll start by saying that. It's unfortunate that schools are in the predicament that they're in right now. However, I think the biggest part of that is being prepared for certain situations. When we talk about school safety, it's really a collaborative effort, right? There's an old saying that it takes a village to raise a child. And I take that into the safety and the security world. It takes all of us. So school safety is not just about me as the chief of operations, and the person responsible for school safety. It's everyone. It's staff, it's students, it's families, it's community members. So everybody takes a part in making sure that schools are safe. You might ask, well, how does everyone take a part? Teachers understanding where we work, where we are, just being aware of your surroundings when you're leaving the car, going to the car. Students understanding that you're in a safe environment. It's a part of our mission and our vision that we always create a safe, nurturing environment for our learners. And I think once we get that in place, everyone feels that much safer. Us as a charter school, we actually did a safety and security audit when I first came into this position back in 2019. And we found some areas where we were lacking. And so we had a company come in and do an audit, and they said, hey, you want to change this, you want to fix this, here are some things, because you want to make sure that your schools are safe. But it didn't take just me. It took members of the staff. It took our students' input, parent input. We've gotten parent input on many of our safety things
and that's
that we have
important.
at our school.
So what were some of those things that the audit found that, you said, we got to make this better for our students?
Yeah. So penetration to the buildings, making sure doors are always secure and locked, making sure that people can't just come in and pull a door and it opens up.
Right.
Things like CCTV cameras in certain areas where you can't physically see that particular area of the building. So you place a camera there to be able to capture some of that. Again, changing our entrance system. So we use key fobs to get into all of our buildings.
Right.
Staff members have to be fobbed in. If a visitor's coming on site, you have to be buzzed in. You're not going to just knock on the door, someone's opening. So it's those things that we look to increase our safety and our security at all three of our campuses, and it's been working well for us.
Now, I noticed, and I don't know if this is true for all three, because I've mostly have gone to the elementary school, but you guys don't have any kind of security mechanism for students. Is that, because some schools do, right? They have to go through the detectors, but you guys don't have that.
Not at our elementary school, we do not. So at our elementary school, which is a K-6 building, we don't do any metal detectors or additional security measures for students in particular. We do have staff members in place in the event that, God forbid, something came into the building. We have plans, and we could discuss that as well. But at our middle school and our high school, we do have what's called a...
Because I haven't been there I haven't been to the high school. Never, but I've been to the middle school, but it's been a while, and I think it was when it was elementary school, so it may have been different. Yeah.
So we have what's called a security or safety checkpoint at arrival every day. So this is where our students' backpacks are checked. There's metal detector wands that we use to make sure that there are no weapons coming into our building. We have student support liaisons who are typical, like your typical sentries. They are there. They are trained on making sure that weapons or paraphernalia is not coming into our building. So our students in 7th through 12th grade, they do go through the security and safety checkpoint. Yes, absolutely.
And you find that that's necessary, right?
It's unfortunate
part
that it
of
is
your
necessary.
plan.
Yes, it's a part of our plan. It's a part of our school code of conduct because we want to make sure and ensure the safety of all stakeholders, not just our students, but our staff as well. And again, we want to make sure that there aren't objects coming into the building that can potentially be harmful to any staff member and or student. So it's necessary, and the way of the world is turning to this soon. You can't go to a concert now without being checked or scanned. You can't go to a game without walking through security. So again, it's unfortunate, but it's the way of the world, and I want to make sure that our school is the safest school in New York.
And I know that your school, and maybe this is a little bit off topic, but I know that your schools have some things in place for students if they're feeling stressed, if they're feeling overwhelmed. They have these calming rooms, or I don't remember exactly what they were called, but I know they were cool. Tell us a little bit about that, just to kind of help students that and most schools have something like that. I hope that most schools have something like that, or all schools have something like that. But tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we do have these spaces in our schools where students can go if they need a break or they need to calm down. We do very well with our counselors and our social workers to deal with the social and emotional needs of our students as well. We also have a reflection room.
That's what it was. That reflection room. That was really cool.
Yes,
I wanted to stay in there.
Because again, it gives you an opportunity to go. And sometimes you just need a space and you can't be around other kids, right?
And
we understand that sometimes as adults,
we just need a break. We lock ourselves in the bathroom.
Absolutely, 100%. So, we've created those spaces on our campuses so that it's not just for student behaviors, but it's also for students who might be in need or in crisis, where they can go and have a conversation with someone or just take a minute, draw, do a puzzle, use, a fidget. We have those opportunities for our students at all three of our campuses, actually.
And I know that, it's unfortunate, again, it's part of a safety plan that schools should have, and and having parents to be a big part of that, because kids do talk about either harming themselves or harming others, and I feel like whenever a student expresses anything like that, you have to take it seriously. Absolutely. You can't just brush it off. Like, you really got to see what the root of this is. And sometimes it does turn out to be just a joke and somebody but, kids, please don't do that, right? Because we take that stuff real serious. So tell us a little bit about that, how you guys handle situations like that.
Yeah, so we take every threat very, very seriously. Some of the common threats, or the biggest common threats in education, are threats of violence and or threats of suicide or threats of self-harm. harming themselves or someone else. And so the big push right now in schools in general is threat assessment, right?
Yeah.
So what are we doing to assess these students in the event that they bring to us a concern or a threat, right? So one of the things, actually, this is perfect timing, I just attended a 2-day seminar summit in Albany 2 weeks ago on threat assessment management. So we are currently putting together a threat assessment management team at our school so that we are trained and properly ready to handle these. Right now, if a student brings a concern or a threat, they do get it to the building leader, which then it ultimately comes to my desk, and I'll work with our partners in the community to assess the student. But we are looking at having a team because those of us in the safety world, we really believe that New York State in the next year or so are going to be mandating that schools have threat assessment teams. Local law enforcement are going through these as well. So it becomes very serious because we take every threat as serious as it comes.
Yeah.
We don't brush anything under the rug. Hopefully it turns out that I was upset, I was angry, I was joking, but we don't know that until
I didn't mean
actually
it. I said it under anger, but I didn't really mean it. I wouldn't follow through with it.
Correct. But we take those serious because we don't know that until we've done this assessment and gotten to the root cause.
Yeah. And I like the fact that you're looking within to have the team within.
Yes.
Right? Because hopefully these are people that the students know, that they've built relationships with, so that it's easier to approach them in a situation like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. We look to have trusted adults.
Yeah.
We always talk to our students about who's a trusted adult in your building, in your campus, and even if it's someone in a different campus, a lot of our 6th graders are now in a new building, and there may not be a trusted adult yet because they don't know them, but there may be a trusted adult back at the elementary school. So we try to bridge that gap and make sure those connections are there so that we can prevent any actual threats from coming to fruition.
Right. So what happens at your school? Let's say that there is a threat. It may not necessarily be like a student threatening another student or anything like that, but just something that happens, right? An emergency that happens in the school. Like, how does that plan out, and how do parents get notified? Like, what happens? Does everybody know what they need to do?
Right. Yes. So that's one thing that I pride myself on is I've worked very hard with our building leaders, our principals, to develop even their own building level emergency response teams within the buildings. And we meet to talk about what to do in the event of an emergency or in the event of a threat. Our students right now practice emergency drills. We use New York State, recommendations and qualifications. So we practice fire drills. We practice lockdowns. We practice lockouts, hold in place, shelter in place, all of these things, evacuation drills, so that students are aware of what to do in the event of a real emergency. And then one of the things that we've done this year, because it's a new requirement, is if we're practicing a drill, we inform families a week in advance. That's something that we have to do. So it's not just we're practicing fire drills, because a lot of times, especially with our little ones, our babies, they go home and say, oh, we had a fire drill or we had an emergency today, and parents aren't aware. So if
I had to go outside without my coat and it was cold.
And it was cold, or it was raining, or it was snowing. And so we inform our families in advance that we will be practicing drills. In the event that there is an emergency that does happen, all of our building leaders know that they send communications home to the family. So a perfect example is, sometimes we have medical emergencies. Someone's not feeling well. Someone could unfortunately pass out or something.
Right.
And we need medical assistance, right? So we'll put the building in a holding place, right? And then once the medical team has gotten there, they've gotten the student or the staff member to safety and everything is good, we release the holding place within the building principal, sends communication home.
So holding place, what does that mean? Like, for people that don't know what that term means.
So if we're in a holding place, that means wherever you are,
you need to stay there.
Yes, hallways are clear. I mean, if you're coming from the bathroom, you get to the quickest place you can, and then you hold there until the holding place is lifted. And it's usually something like we need to get a gurney or a stretcher in there. We have medical staff. We don't want to scare, especially our young ones.
You don't want to scare the
so
students.
We hold them in place. Learning can still happen. Teaching can still happen, but you're held in that place. You're not going to music, or you're not going to gym. You might go to lunch a few minutes late, but that's what it is when we hold students in place.
Cool.
Yeah, and then our staff members always send that communication home to our families as well.
And what happens if you have to be outside of the building, like you can't come back in? Like, what happens then?
So that would be considered like a lockout, or if we had to evacuate the building for whatever. So for confidentiality reasons, I can't express. But if our elementary school had to evacuate, they go to a specific location where they can seek shelter, and vice versa. If our middle school had to evacuate the building for whatever reason, there's a safe location that they would go to as well if they can't get back in the building. We would only do evacuation if gas leak, some sort of issue, power goes down, and we can't get busing in time, so we may need to evacuate the building.
Or there's a real fire drill where you don't know, it wasn't planned, and now everybody has to go out, and you can't go back in until the police department comes, or the fire department comes. So you got to stay out there.
Absolutely. And so those plans are all in place, and I will say we've done a really, really good job at making sure that our emergency drills are covered with our students prior to, and our staff has done an awesome job with it.
And that's really important. Like people don't people probably don't think about it, right? I mean, I ran the Ibero Child Care for 19 years. We would have fire drills on a monthly basis. So every month we would have, and it's amazing that, and ours are little ones, right? We're talking 6 weeks to 4 years old. And, the minute you did that regularly on a monthly basis, kids knew what to do. I mean, the first day is always a little crazy, right? Because they're screaming, they're covering their ears, and they don't want to move fast enough. And, we got to put the babies in the evacuation crib and take them out. But kids do learn that, right? Kids do learn that, and they'll know, the best, they'll know to stay with their teachers, they'll know to stay close together, that type of thing. But, people may not think about that, but all those things have to be put in place.
Absolutely.
And you as a parent, you have the right to say, hey, what are your evacuation plans? Like, what are you guys doing in case of an emergency? Yes. We normally gave our parents our actual evacuation plan in writing for them to have, and we would have them sign it that they knew what would happen in the event of an emergency. Because it's important for them to know what's going to happen, especially if we're locked out and where are we going to be, and so they can find us, or when we call them, they'll know where to come, that kind of thing. But, those are all things that we don't think about, right? That we go to our day-to-day, working and going to school, whatever, but we don't think about, okay, what's going to happen in case of an emergency.
Yeah, absolutely. And those are things that we also have in place. So, we have what's called a safety plan for our school. So it's a main safety plan, and that's available on our school's website, and that's available for anyone. If you wanted to know what we do for safety and security in terms of, our safety plan, it's available. It's right on our website. Yeah. But then we have also specifics, which are called building level emergency plans, similar to your evacuation plan for the daycare, where this lists out who are the key stakeholders in the event of the emergency. Where are we going to be if there's an evacuation? And that is available to our students and our staff.
And what's
families.
the procedure? Like, how does this happen, right?
Exactly. So that is available to our families and to our staff, at each campus, because it differs from campus to campus. Our high school is not going to follow the same evacuation plan.
Because they're in a whole different building with other people and other things happening.
And it looks very different, based on geographical location where they are as well.
Exactly.
So those things are available, and we've done really, really well each year of updating those. Staff leave, we update it with current numbers. Positions may change. So we update those on a yearly basis or as needed. If there's a huge shift or change during the middle of the school year, then we have to change those as well.
And that's a lot of work. To kind of look at that and make sure that everything's in place. I'm assuming that you guys have some kind of evacuation maps as well, so that if you are in the building and you could look at a map and kind of know which way to go.
Absolutely.
And those sometimes have to be updated as well, right? I know for the child care center, we had different people that looked, because we have like a upper floor and a lower floor. So we had someone that made sure before they left that everybody on the lower floor was out, and then whoever was on the first floor make sure that everybody was out on the first floor. So all these little details that you have to have when you have an emergency plan like
Absolutely.
that. Absolutely.
And those take a lot of time.
Yes.
It's a lot of heavy work during the summer to get the plans in place.
Yep.
And then as soon as day one starts, we start implementing. Yes. So who's doing the sweep of the basement? Who's doing the sweep of the first floor?
Yeah, and you
who's
guys multiple floors.
Floor? Yeah. Right. And then being on the radios, we do a lot of training around our radio etiquette and who's talking at what time, and making sure that you're
to be calm
clear.
When you're talking, because you could be next to a child and now they're talking on the radio. If they sound all freaked out, the kid's going to get freaked out. So it's all those little things that you got to keep in place.
And I'm a stickler for what is and is not shared over the air.
Right.
And if I hear something that shouldn't have been shared, I'll call that administrator and say, hey, you got to be careful. A parent could have heard that transmission, or a student could have heard that transmission.
Because The most important, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but the most important thing is to keep the kids calm. Like you want to keep, you don't want chaos.
Yes, we don't want chaos. And that's what happens. Yeah. And if the adults or the administrators are freaked out, everybody else is going to be as well.
Because kids are going to follow you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's so funny because, I'm thinking back of all the times we had to do fire drills and, the most important thing is remaining calm. And I remember we had a child once that had a seizure and everybody was freaking out. Like everybody was in the hallway. And, I remember coming out of my office like, what's going on? And they're like, he's having it. I was like, everybody go back to your classrooms. Like everybody get out of the hallway. Yeah. Everybody just disappeared. Just get out of here. Yeah. And I said, just call 911. Just call 911.
And that's what happens. And it's weird because, I shouldn't say it's weird. It's actually a good thing. So we used to do that a lot too at the school, right? And a few years ago, I want to say 3 years ago, we started implementing what's called the incident command system, right? And it's really a FEMA practice. Law enforcement uses it, but we've implemented it now at the school level. So when an emergency does unfortunately happen, you don't have everybody going crazy.
Right.
So who is the incident commander? Who is the person saying, hey, I need you to call 911.
Yep.
I need you to make sure kids are where they are. I need you to turn off the alarm. I need you to make sure the doors are locked.
Yes.
And usually you need someone who can remain calm under pressure. You need someone who is very well spoken and can articulate what's happening. And again, you set this system in place, and this is what I've been working with our building leaders to do, and they've done a great job. Who is your incident commander? And then that person is in charge until the next level of authority comes. If I ended up showing up to an emergency at the middle school, now I become the incident commander. And now I'm making the decisions on what happens next. If we need law enforcement involved, once law enforcement gets there, I'm out of the equation.
And now you let them take
or the fire department or the medical teams. But that way it tries to keep everybody calm, cool, and collected. Because in emergencies, it's often easy for everybody to lose.
And all you need is one person to freak out.
Yep, that's all you.
That's all you need. Is one person to freak out.
And then it's a spiral.
Yeah, it's a spiral.
You have complete chaos that doesn't need to be.
That is very true. I want to go back to, because you said you just recently came from a training in Albany. Is that something that you have to do often? Because that's another thing that we don't think about, right? Things get outdated, the new things come into place, things happen. Unfortunately, it usually, when tragedies happen in other places, then they have to put all these new things in place. Like, is that something that you're constantly, I imagine, being trained and,
Yes, I attend a lot of professional development around safety and security, specifically K-12 school safety and security. One of the things that I have a consultant that I work with and a mentor, and one of the things that he said when we started working together is, a lot of charter schools don't have these things in place. A lot of the big districts and suburban districts do because they have directors of safety and security who do these things. But a lot of charter schools don't. So I had a conversation with my CEO, Mrs. Blackman, and we talked about how are we going to make sure that we are a safe school, up to date on all of the requirements, training that needs to happen. So very often I attend professional development. This one that I attended a few weeks ago was all around threat assessment management teams, like I talked about. But there were law enforcement officers there, psychologists were there, school leaders were there, fire department was there, because this assessment piece, it's not necessarily the threat, it's the assessing of the threats and figuring out, targeted violence and things. And again, you said it earlier, we haven't had an issue at our school, and we're grateful for that.
Right.
But it's better to be prepared for the incident in the event that it happens than for an incident to occur and for not
you don't know what to do.
Absolutely. So yes, very often I'm attending different professional developments to better myself with the knowledge and then bring back to our school, because again, we want Eugenio to be a place where people feel safe at all times.
What about the school resource officers? Because I know that looks different at your school.
It does.
Compared to, in some schools you see the police officers. I know that's kind of been pushed out a little bit by students themselves who have advocated and said, that's not what we want. And I know yours looks a little bit different. So tell us about that.
Sure. So we actually, at our school, we have what we call student support liaisons that we hire from the school. and they belong to us. And these individuals are trained in restorative practices. They're trained.
So these are your staff.
These are our staff. Okay. Yes, they're trained in defense tactics, de-escalation techniques, and things of that nature. And those belong to us. So we have 2 of those at our middle school, and we also have 2 at our high school. So those would be your typical sentries. So in other districts, that would be equivalent to like our sentries. Right. In terms of school resource officers, we use actual security officers. So we do contract with an outside vendor, and we have 2 security officers. So we actually have an unarmed security officer, and then we actually have an armed security officer in a patrol vehicle that goes back and forth between our elementary and our middle school campuses. We talked to our board of trustees a few years ago. We were having a lot of incidences outside of our schools because of the location where we are. Right. And, so we had car thefts, break-ins, vehicles stolen, just unwanted individuals in and around our school community where our kids are. And we had a lot of incidences. So from one year to the next, 22-23 school year to the 23-24 school year, we talked to the Board of Trustees and approved that we have an armed officer. The purpose is to help mitigate incidents. Yes. It won't dissolve them,
right.
But it's to kind of help mitigate and to be a deterrence for some of the incidences that we were experiencing.
Yeah, they'll think twice if they see.
Exactly. So, and I can report and say that, the data and the statistics have shown that just with having the officer outdoors in a patrol car, going back and forth between our campuses, walking around our parking lots, securing the premises, our incidences have gone down drastically.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Drastically.
Yeah.
From 22-23 school year, I believe we had 9 or so car break-ins and 2 stolen vehicles. Last year, we had 1 attempted break-in. Yeah. But when you see an armed security officer approaching you, the chances of you breaking into that vehicle are slim to none now. So that's kind of how we do our personnel. We have our student support liaisons inside of the building, which are EMHCS staff members, and then we contract with an outside partner for our security officers. And it has shown to be very rewarding for us as a school community.
Sounds like it, Sounds like a good investment.
Absolutely, 100%.
Because the thing about stuff like that, like you when you think about it, okay, I'd rather not have any of that, but also not have any incidents happening, right? Because you don't want to always have an officer there, but you also don't want to be your car broken into or stolen or anything like that. I know when the whole hype of Kia, oh my gosh, like I think everybody experienced that. We had a lot of cars stolen from our child care center as well as people that would come and cut the, I don't know what it's called, but they would cut a piece of underneath the car.
The tailpipes and stuff, right?
Something. I can't remember what it was, but whatever it was very expensive. So they can actually cut that part of the car. They would actually get underneath the car, cut it, and take it.
Wow, right.
And then sell it to whoever. And so we had a couple of those too that happened at our center. And so we had to put additional cameras in our area just to kind of keep a watch of what was happening and stuff like that. But but to know that you have that security there, that's kind of, again, deterring people from having to come and do that kind of stuff. And I love the fact that you guys are where you are.
Yes.
Right? Because I feel that you bring some stability to that community and to that neighborhood. But it has its challenges, Absolutely. Right? So you got to go the extra mile because the last thing you want is for parents to pull out their kids because they don't feel safe. Exactly. And the other last thing that you want is to staff to leave because they don't feel safe.
And we've had those concerns both from families and from staff
I'm sure.
about just not feeling safe getting to their vehicle or dropping their kid off. So all of these things played a part in reassessing how we do our security personnel. Because we did the camera thing. We added additional cameras to the parking lot. But then all that does is a car was stolen. You can possibly see who stole the car. Yeah. You might be able to get an ID on it. Yeah. But if there's a physical person there,
it's different.
It deters it and mitigates it even that much more. So all of these things have helped. And again, when we got ready to add this armed security officer, to our fleet of personnel, we surveyed our staff, we surveyed our parents, we got feedback from them on what they thought. And again, it wasn't, I won't say it was even Steven in terms of the responses, but enough of them said, yes, we're willing to go for it and we're willing to try this and see how it works. And now we get nothing but compliments and thank yous for this because again, to drop off your 6-year-old and know that they're safe. I had a parent on my way out this morning, I kid you not, when I was leaving, she said, when I see your truck outside and I see this officer out here, I know my baby is safe.
Yeah.
And that just made my day. That literally happened this morning on my way out to come over
confirming that
Absolutely.
what you're doing is
it's
right.
A confirmation. It lets me know that we're on the right path. We're headed the right way. And again, I'll say it over and over again. It's unfortunate because I didn't grow up in schools like that.
Me neither. We were the security. Like we were a little orange little bag. Safety security. I was too at school 14.
Yeah, so I didn't grow up that way. But now we have to. And I have kids and they go to schools with the same thing, So again, it's just it's the unfortunate way of the world right now. But if it has to be that way, then my job is to make sure that we are doing it in excellence. Absolutely.
Yeah. And again, I think, investing in an officer is going to give you a greater investment later on than having 5 or 6 teachers quit.
Correct.
Because that's a long process, right? To hire someone to, all the background checks and all. I mean, that's a lot of work just to have somebody quit because they don't feel safe.
Correct.
Like
or
no
families.
one wants to, no one wants to go to a place where they don't feel safe.
And we try to provide that. And again, the other bad part would be families now withdrawing their students.
Yeah.
And our enrollment dropping.
Yes.
We want students.
And you don't want,
we want your students.
Yeah. And you don't want families to say, I don't, the last thing you want is for family to say, I don't send my kids there because I don't feel safe.
Correct.
Like that's, that's like the last thing that they should be saying, right?
It is. And, and it's one of those things that goes back to what I said earlier about school safety is a collaborative effort, right? I welcome feedback from parents and from families. We did our PTO last week. It was all about safety and security. And I shared with them, some of the key components of our school and safety and security. We had an outside partner come in and talk about drug, gang, and violence prevention.
Which is another safety thing.
It's collaborative. It's not just John Harris.
Yeah.
It's not just the staff at Eugenio. It's everybody, even our students. If you see something, say something. We teach our students, a lot of the issues that we could potentially have are usually mitigated because another student lets in a trusted
That's like a neighborhood, just like a neighborhood. If you're looking out, you're calling 911 before something happens.
You'd be surprised the number of incidences that are mitigated before they start because the student says,
Good for
hey,
them.
Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so, this is what I heard, or this is what kids are planning to do, or I think you want to check into this. And then our staff get right on it. So again, it's collaborative effort to make sure that schools are safe.
And it's good that the students feel uncomfortable enough to say something, because the safety of their school is important to them.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So that's really, really cool. I like that. I like the fact that they're, that you're able to do that.
Yeah. And we've created that culture for our students to feel comfortable doing that without disclosing who they are.
Yeah. Of course.
So we're not going to say, your friend so-and-so said this. No, once we get that intel, we move on it and we are able to then mitigate some of the incidences that could be very disastrous.
Yeah, of course. So when I know that at the child care center we had like a primary exit, we had a secondary exit. In the event that we couldn't go out this door, we can go out that door. Do you guys have something similar? Like, how do kids safely get out of the building if they have to?
So when it comes to our building security and safety and our doors, exits, and entrances, one of the first things we do is we make sure that anyone coming into the building has to enter through our main entrance, period, point blank. You have to be buzzed in. In the event of emergency, all of our doors, you can get out. So you can get out safely and quickly, but our doors are alarmed and key fobbed. So it's interesting how over the time things have just evolved because, a couple years ago when we weren't as big on safety and security, we would allow for staff to kind of come in through any door. But then you start looking at, if I come in through this door and it doesn't close all the way, someone then can enter the door behind.
Or I'm pulling something out of my car, I'm going to prompt that door, and I forgot to unprompt the door.
Absolutely, yeah. And those are
that
just
happens.
things. It just happens, right? So we've really enforced that our staff members, you come in and out of our main entrance, period, point blank. But in the event of an emergency and there needs to be an evacuation, all of our doors, what they call crash bar out, so that students can get out quickly and safely. Because if there's an emergency in the building, We want people to be able to flood out safely
right.
and quickly. We don't want to filter everybody through just one door because now
exactly.
we bottleneck.
You
have
the chaos.
idea of chaos and people being trampled.
Right.
So that's how we've kind of mitigated those issues, is making sure that all of our doors are accessible to get out of, but we really enforce only one way in when entering our campuses.
We do the same thing at the center. We had just one way to come in. Everybody had to, there's multiple ways. We have a back door towards the kitchen. Right. We have like 2 of them in the back. Every classroom on the first floor had a door to the playground. But you can't come in through those doors. Right. Like you literally, somebody has to let you in. Right. But, there's a lot of doors, but we made sure that everybody came in through one door. Everybody signs in because that's another one. Yep. And I know that that's at the school, whenever I go there, I have to sign my name, the time that I came in. Who am I going to see? I have to put on a name
and you're
tag.
on camera.
And I'm on camera, and I can't go beyond. I'm just in that entrance area to go beyond. We're in the halls. I got to get buzzed in and somebody has to know that I'm going in there. Yep. So there is a lot of, and you have someone sitting there all the time, making sure that when people are coming in, greeting them, and also giving them instructions on how you can access the building. Absolutely. But those are all key things, right? That we all have to have in order to make sure.
Absolutely, and we're looking at and I don't want to get ahead of myself, but even we're looking at other ways that we can even do better with our new campus, right? How can we beef up what we already have? How can we add to it to make it even that much more secure? Because again, we want to make sure that our students
because now you're going to have 2. You're going to have the middle school and the high school in the same place.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and one of the things we talk about in the world of safety is that the safest place you can be in an emergency is behind a locked door, right? So making sure that, kids are safe behind locked doors and you can't get into our schools, you'd have to break down that door. And it's going to take a bit to break down those doors. So
absolutely.
We always aim to make sure that our doors are closed and secure. Even our main entrance doors, we don't prop our doors open. If it's warm, you sweat a little bit.
You sweat a little bit.
We can't
dressed
prop
in layers.
Absolutely. We can't prop this door open because, the safest place in an emergency is going to be behind the locked door.
Yeah. We had an incident once at the center. Everybody had left, but they left the door between. So there's a door that you get buzzed in, and then there's another door to get actually inside the building, right? So there's this little hallway there. I don't know who did it, but they left the one going into the building open, and the alarm wasn't on. So 2 little kids, they were little kids. One was 5 and the other one may have been like 8 or something. They actually kept throwing this piece of a bike that you put on the pedals, like this real round, heavy metal thing. They kept throwing it to the glass until the point that they shattered the glass. Oh, wow. Once they shattered the glass, they were inside the building. Right. Yeah. Because the door was prompt open. Yeah. And I mean, they didn't do a lot of that other than breaking the glass, obviously, because that was really expensive. But they found some candy at somebody's desk. They had a couple of little instruments or something in their hands. Yeah. But they actually were able to get into the building because somebody left the door prompt open.
We've seen situations like that with propped open doors, which is why we're really hard on not propping doors. A few years ago when I was an assistant principal at what's currently our elementary school, at the end of the day, and it wasn't a big issue, but there was a father who got into our building, and I just happened to turn, and he was there looking for his kid, and I'm like, well, how did you get in? Yeah. And he said, I came through exit so-and-so, and I'm like, but that door is locked. He said, it was open. So again, you have those incidents where people prop doors to run to their car to grab something, or to take garbage out.
And because they know they're not doing it, they're not supposed to do it. They do it quick and they forget.
Absolutely. So what we've done since then is we alarm those other doors. So now if you go out that door, it alarms. I get the alert on my cell phone. Our security officers get it at their desk. So we know exactly who went out of that door and who was not supposed to. And we've addressed those people because again, we want to make sure that we're safe. And if you're putting us in a vulnerable position, we have to address that because now any and everyone can get in. And as much as we love where we are in the community, I feel like you said, we're a staple. Yeah, we are in the community. We're here for the community. We're not going anywhere, but we also realize where we are in the community. And someone may need they could be seeking shelter or something to eat or just not know.
Or parents that are feuding and one parent comes to get the other child or they don't even have custody of that. I mean, anything can happen.
Yes, and anything you can name, I've seen it.
Oh, I've seen it. Me too. I've seen it.
We've done this for a lot of years, so we've seen it all. So again, it's simple.
I'm never surprised.
Like, you don't have prop doors, so we've alarmed those doors. So if you go out of that door, the alarm is going to go off. You know that we caught you on camera, and then we're going to address it because again, we want to make sure people are safe. And leaving a door open is a breach into our buildings, and we don't want that.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about locked in, because if you're locked in, like like for example, at the child care center, we have that if we're locked in, let's say for we have enough food for 3 or 4 days in the event that something happens, right? So, it could be crackers and tuna or whatever, something that's not going to get spoiled, that we can have there for a while. And obviously we replenish it as it gets to an expiration date. But what plans do you guys have? Because those are big schools. I mean, your elementary school has what, 600 plus kids. So that's a lot of kids.
Absolutely.
That if you're locked in for whatever reason, right? And anything can happen where you can't leave.
Right.
How do you guys take care of all those kids while they're there?
Yep. So again, we do have plans very similar. So we order food. We order enough food usually for the week.
Right.
And we've gone down from ordering twice a week to once a week, and it's working. But we always have an excess. We've been very fortunate this year as well. We get donated foods, right? Okay. So we have enough food supply, if you will. If we had to. Unfortunately had to be locked in for a while. Our food service staff are wonderful with making sure they inventory everything. They know what's available, provide snacks if we need to. So in a situation like that, we would be able to make sure at least our kids could eat and be fed. Yeah. But again, we have plans in place that in the event something like that happens, a true emergency, we would tap into our emergency plans and figure out, do we need to evacuate? Do we need to get some sort of transportation?
Yeah.
How do we inform our parents? How do we let them know that the kids are here, we cannot let them out, So again, we use a school messenger system for robocalls. Okay. Emails, text message, and email all go out. Yeah. And did I say robocall? Because we can do voice
and you guys have a Facebook page
too. We have a Facebook page. We have a website. We have an Instagram page. So there's multiple ways in which we can inform families that, hey, we're going to be here for a little bit, but your babies are safe here with us. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I know at the center we had to think about food. We also had to think about formula. We had to think about diapers. So in the event
we don't have diapers and formula.
I know, but that's another layer, right? That we had to think about, that in the event that we're locked in here for 3 or 4 days, how are we going to be able to, keep everyone, and where do we go? Because the top floor of our building it's all windows. Oh. You know what I mean? So that we would all go downstairs where people couldn't necessarily see us. In the event that somebody's shooting or whatever, that we would be clear out of vision, that people couldn't see us, but still be comfortable enough with our kids. We have games, we have books, we have, all sorts of supplies to keep them busy, all the stuff that you got to think about.
You have to keep them busy because their little brains.
And they're already, maybe a little bit anxious because of what's happening. They don't understand.
Scared.
So you got to be able to occupy their mind with something.
Absolutely. And even with our lockdowns and lockouts, the kids practice those. So they're not familiar. If someone comes across one of our PA systems and says, we're in a lockdown, our kids know exactly what to do. That means that you are quiet, you get behind a locked door, and you are out of sight. You know? Yeah. One of the other things that a lot of schools don't typically use is a lockout. A lockout is more like there's something going on in the community around us.
Right.
And so we've had to do that before. Something's happening around us in the community.
Yes.
There's no threat to us inside, but we're locking everybody out. No one's coming into the building.
Yes.
Nobody's going out of this building because there's something going on close enough to us that could potentially be threatful or harm to us.
And I remember an incident with us. It was 2 dogs that were loose.
Yes.
And they were like vicious. And there were pit bulls. And we had the kids in the playground. We had to run everybody inside. Yes. And so we, until we didn't hear from the police that they had caught those 2 dogs, we could not go out of that building because we didn't want a dog biting our babies.
It's so funny because our paths are similar. So we've done it for dogs for sure. We've had multiple dogs loose in our playground or whatever. And so it's like, hey, nobody's coming in or out of this building. And we've also done it for just like, unfortunately, like police presence, right? Like there's a heavy police presence on Remington. We don't really know what's going on. Nobody goes out.
Exactly.
Everybody stays inside. And nobody's coming in until we know what's going on.
We had one police officer chasing someone in a car, and the car actually ran through the house behind us and ended up in our parking lot and then ran on foot and apparently had a gun in his. So again, that was one there where we all went downstairs, and until we didn't hear that it was clear that they had caught the person, and then we had to deal with repairing our fence and stuff like that, but everybody was safe.
Yep. Yeah, and that's what's important, is keeping everyone safe. And I will say we've done also a good job with partnering with local law enforcement. We are fortunate enough to have the net office very, very close to us.
Very close.
Literally walking distance. So in certain situations, we'll tap into law enforcement quickly to know, hey, are we okay? Is there any, immediate danger? Is there a threat? Is there anything we need to be worried about or concerned about at this time? So that's been very fortunate for us as well, especially our middle school. It's literally walking
and
distance.
That's really important to say, because we've also had a very good relationship with the police officers. And I know whenever we've called for anything for our center, I mean, they're there within seconds.
Yes.
Like there's no, and even when we had the issues with the cars and things like that, at one point we had issue having to cross the street because we're in such a busy street. And we had officers that, if they had a little bit of spare time, they would come and kind of watch us in the mornings or watch us at departure time. So it's really good to have that kind of relationship with the police officers, because they will look out for us.
It is.
Know.
It was one of the things, when I started this role, one of the consultants and mentors that I have, he said, you have to create a relationship
you do.
with local law
yes,
enforcement.
You do.
You got to create a relationship with local fire department.
Yes.
You got to create a relationship with EMTs. You want these people
to know who you
on
are.
Your team, know who you are, know where you guys are in the community,
and
have quick response time. Obviously, in true emergency, 911 is the way to go.
Yeah, right.
But there's other times where I pick up my cell phone and I call someone and say, hey, this is the situation. Advise me on what we should do.
Yeah, and I've had situations where something did happen, and that police officer that, probably was in our neighborhood during the day would come and check on us.
Yeah.
Hey, I heard last night that this and this happened. Are you guys okay? So that's really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, we've also, I've met with the lieutenant at the net office. Actually, I met with her a couple weeks ago. We've given RPD access to our building, so they have key fobs as well. So, in a real emergency
they can come
right into the buildings. Cool. They don't have to be buzzed in. They don't need to wait.
Right.
We've provided them with means to have access to our buildings, and we want that. We want that, because if something's happening, we want the law enforcement, the people who are trained, to take care of it. We want them to be able to get into our buildings.
We've mostly talked about Eugenio María de Osos Charter School and the safety plan there, but any parent that's listening should, if you're concerned with the safety plan of where your child may go, maybe they don't go to Eugenio María de Osos Charter School, but they go to another school. Ask about their plans, because all schools should have something in place. So ask about their plans. I want to quickly, before we finish off, I want to talk to you about the building, the new addition there, because I know you've been heading that. So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So the vision of our expansion, we call it the expansion project. Is really to create a space where we have a 7th through 12th grade campus and a place that we call our own. So right now, our high school, we currently lease the space where we are currently.
Which is downtown at MCC somewhere.
Kodak building.
Kodak building.
So we're leasing from the Kodak, but we wanted to, and we thought it most beneficial to have a place that we can call our own. So the vision is to have a 7th through 12th grade campus. The components will be a 9th grade academy, which is going to be in the same building, but it'll be kind of separated from everyone else. This will be just for our 9th graders. I think all of us know 9th graders. That's a very, very
tough,
crucial year.
That's a better word. That's a
very crucial year in getting them ready to transition into high school. So there's specifics that we'll hone in on them. We're looking at possibly doing year-round schooling to some degree for our 9th graders to prepare them for 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade. So the 9th graders will be in its own wing of the building, have its own separate facility, but then we'll have a 10th through 12th grade 2-story building as well. And then I think what a lot of people, especially our students, are most proud of is the Section 5 gym. We'll have our own gym, a place where we can call home. Right now, and athletics is another one of those pieces and components that I oversee, right? Right now, all of our games, all of our competitions are somewhere else. We don't have home court advantage. We don't have a place of our own. So the vision behind this is a place that we can call home. We've been here. We're not going anywhere. So at this, we need a place to call our own. So we're really excited about having all of our 7th through 12th graders in one place at one campus, 2.5 blocks from our elementary school.
Yes, so everything right there.
We're all right there on Joseph Avenue,
which is really cool.
Absolutely.
What I like about the design of your expansion is that you have kept the facade of the church.
Yes.
So how's that going to work? Like I'm trying to figure that out in my brain. Like how are they going to make a church into a school and still keep it looking like a church? Like I think that's really cool though.
It is. And it's one of the most exciting parts of the project from our design build team, right? Is keeping the facade of the church. And essentially the easiest way for me to explain it is that they're going to pretty much build a building inside of a building. So we're going to have a 3-story
So the shell
building.
is going to be the same thing, but
the
inside
shell will be the same. Inside we'll have 3 stories of
Wow.
classrooms and office spaces for our 9th graders and administrators and student and school support staff. So the shell will be the church. It'll look just like a church, but inside it'll be a 3-story building.
Nice.
Yeah. That's
so when you guys have like really big events, can you go up there and still ring the bell of the church?
So one of the things we are keeping is the bell.
Good.
Are keeping the bell. It will be completely blocked off and not accessible by staff and students, but there will be a way to get there. And if we needed to ring the bell, we could.
I think
absolutely
you should.
Ring
like
that
if you
bell.
have a game or something, you got to ring the bell.
We could absolutely ring the bell. Our design team, that was one of the pieces that they thought that they would leave in place. The bell tower
it's so
will
cool.
be there. Because originally it was going to actually be an elevator shaft. And we went back and forth. We said, you know what? Let's leave that piece of it there. So we moved the elevator shaft,
somewhere
the stair
else.
tower to a different place. Absolutely, yeah.
No, I think it's really cool that you have kept the facade of the church. I know, when it comes to churches like that, especially in communities like ours, like they mean a lot to us. Even though the church may have closed and it's become something else, there's so much sentiment right around the churches. And I know that I found out the day of the groundbreaking that Miguel Melendez, who is part of your board for the school, that he actually got married there.
Yes.
And that now his kids, are going to the school. So, so people like that, will have these real special sentiments towards the school and towards the church.
Yes, and it is. And it's funny because we held 3 town hall meetings, prior to all of this. And that was one of the pieces that a few members from the community mentioned, and we figured we would honor and respect that. They like the tower. Similar to Miguel Melendez, one of the community members, our neighbors, he graduated from the school that was there.
Wow.
He got married in that church there.
Probably had his kids baptized there.
So it's a staple in the community, and we didn't want to touch that facade of it, so it will still be there.
That's really cool.
It's really awesome that we can keep that facade, so we don't need to do anything outdoors with it, and inside is going to look wonderful. We'll have our kids there.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Nice. So, John, thank you so much for sharing all of this information with us. We thought it was important to share, some of the school safety because school just started, before we know it, it's June, but it also takes a long time to get there, right? And we want parents to know that, kids that are in school, that they are well taken care of. And like I said, even though you spoke specifically about Eugenio Maria, those who started school, all schools have a safety plan, and parents should be asking what those safety plans are, right? Absolutely. And what happens at my school if something was to happen. But I thank you for sharing all of this information with us. I'd like to close the show by asking if there's a phrase or a saying that you grew up with that still resonates with you today. And you said you had one. So which one is that?
I do have one, and I want to just share quickly if I can first.
Yeah.
I grew up with a lot.
Okay, good.
My father was a pastor,
so he had lots of them.
I had lots
Probably
of them.
Bible-related
Absolutely.
ones.
I grew up with parables all the time.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up like a normal kid.
Yeah.
But one of the things that he used to always tell us, and he would always say to us, is charity starts at home and spreads abroad. And it's funny because now I find myself saying that to my kids, and they don't understand it yet, but they will. And really, I like that statement because it holds true for me even today, right? Like charity starts at home, meaning the community that I'm in.
Yes.
How am I making a difference in the community where I am right now?
Yes.
Even at EMHCS here at the school, right? We have Black and brown kids. They can see a Black face, a brown face, someone who can relate to them, right? So the charity, the love starts there first. Once we've reached that piece of it, then we can extend ourselves and sit at other tables. But I'm a stickler for being in the community and spreading the love and the charity home first.
Yeah, Mr. Harris, I'm so pleased that you were able to join me today.
Absolutely.
I've always, like I said, I liked you from the very beginning. The minute I met you, I liked you.
It's mutual. It's mutual. Can I tell a secret or no?
Yeah, I don't know. What's the secret?
Miss Ida made my wedding cake.
Oh, that's right. That's true. That is true. that is very, very true.
So we hit it off from the very
and
beginning.
Chocolate balls. And
yes,
chocolate balls.
Absolutely. We hit it off from the beginning, so we knew there was purpose in this.
Interesting enough, because your wife, she was my student when she was 4 years old, when I was a preschool teacher.
Yeah. And you've been a mentor for her now.
Yes. And she's a wonderful person. And I just love the fact that you guys are together, because her being a wonderful person, you being a wonderful person. And I just love that. And now to know your background and everything, I love you even more. So thank you so much for being with us today. Welcome. I really appreciate it. Gracias a todos por acompañarnos en esta mañana. Lo esperamos nuevamente el próximo sábado de 10 a 11 de la mañana en Poder 97.1 FM, la única estación radial latina, dueño y operado por latinos, por la comunidad, para la comunidad. Esto ha sido su hora informativa, trayendo la información importante que nos inspira a una mejor calidad de vida. Que pasen una linda semana. Hasta la próxima, mi gente.